welcome. You're with us here on Business Today. I'm Abha Bakaya. It's been a terrible Tuesday for markets, equities, currencies, crude, and even for cryptocurrencies. The escalation of tensions in Ukraine, with two of the restive regions of the country breaking away and aligning with Russia, led to complete panic in the markets. Starting with Russia itself, where the RTSI plunged 15% in a single day. The contagion spread to other markets and uncertainty has gripped one and all. Are you also one of those investors that are wondering what to do at this point? Well, then the Business Today show is one you just cannot miss. After the carnage which started in the morning, Indian equities staged a smart recovery in the last hour of trade. Though the Sensex staged a 906-point recovery from lows, it still ended 383 points lower. Despite recovering more than 200 points, the Nifty declined for a fifth straight day, ending below 17,100. Broader markets also bleeding, the Nifty mid-cap and small-cap indices down over 1% each. Investors losing 6 lakh crore rupees in today's crash. Benchmark indices witnessed a strong decline on the back of escalations in Ukraine tensions after Russia recognized two pro-Russian rebel regions have aggravated the crisis. US and Europe tightening the noose by hitting back with sanctions against the Russia-aligned zones. The economic consequences are already visible and are likely to get worse. All sectoral indices were in the red today. Nifty Media, Realty, PSU Bank, Metals, some of the top laggards. And other factors hurting the markets include rising crude oil prices, of course, FIIs continuing to pull out, and fear of those aggressive Fed rate hikes and worsening inflation. All of this making investors incredibly jittery. Andrew Holland joining us on the show today. Andrew, absolutely fantastic to have you with us on a day where we've witnessed such tremendous volatility, and it's not the first time we're seeing this in recent sessions. Markets are clearly not managing to settle at all. What's your perspective? How much is the current situation with regards to Ukraine going to play spoilsport with investor sentiment?
Oh, I think it's going to continue to continue to keep the volatility and jitters high. But markets have held up reasonably well today, despite having fallen. But they did recover as you rightly mentioned. And I think that's partly to do with a number of factors. One, I think it's been reasonably well telegraphed what Putin's ambitions have been, and of course we know what some of the reprisals in terms of sanctions would be from the West. And those are starting to play out. So the market's probably saying, well, we have that all kind of factored in. Now, with Russia doing what they've done and with the retaliation in terms of sanctions, maybe now the two sides will sit down again to see what they can carve out in terms of any agreements. So I think that's the optimistic side of it. But having listened to Putin's speech yesterday on TV, and his view is that he wants to get back to the good old USSR days, and I think that's worrying quite a number of people in Europe in particular. So that's what's going to keep the markets on jitters, I think, in the very short term.
So what should one apply as a strategy right now, Andrew? Because should investors be sitting on the sidelines? Should they be booking losses if they'll be making losses in the current fall, or just choosing an opportunity to exit? Would you even suggest buying at lower levels?
I think if you can sit on the sidelines with your cash kept dry, I think you'll get plenty of opportunities over the next, the course of the next few weeks to come back into the markets, pick out your favorite stocks. So I think just, if some good news comes, yes, markets will probably have a sharp rally, but then you're buying into a scenario where that some of these problems within Europe and particularly Ukraine have died down, and you can look forward to the markets being not hit by those kind of volatility. Because of one country saying one thing and the moves that Putin might be making, so that will take a lot of uncertainty away, which markets would like. But then again, we'll go back to the Federal Reserve and what they're going to do. And again, because of these problems, the feeling is now that maybe central banks around the world will not be so aggressive initially on interest rate hikes, just because of what we've seen because of the Ukraine situation.
Okay, Andrew, stay with us. Let me also bring our viewers up to speed on what happened with oil. It nearly scaled the $100 a barrel mark for the first time since September 2014 on the back of those tensions between Russia and Ukraine continuing to escalate. Prices climbing on fears that the crisis will disrupt supplies across the world. According to experts, if Russia-Ukraine tensions escalate and continue for the next 3 or 4 months, oil could easily breach $110, $115 a barrel. The US and several European nations have threatened sanctions against Russia, which is the second largest oil exporter. The Ukraine-Russia crisis could have substantial implications on prices, which have now jumped about 9% since the start of the month. Rising crude is a cause of concern for India, with prices already surpassing the economic survey estimates by $20 a barrel. If a war does break out, supply chains are going to be disrupted, and the one product that will worry India is oil, both as a fuel and cooking oil. Last year, India bought 74% of its sunflower oil from Ukraine. So if a war breaks out, cooking oil might become even more expensive. Andrew, we had heard brokerages and analysts talking about $100 this year, and it seemed like a distant possibility a few months ago, and now we're here, we're talking 115 now. What's your outlook on crude, and what would you suggest in terms of a strategy there?
So I think that the $100 target for crude was there anyway, because with this move towards green energy, most of the oil exploration companies are not investing at all. So going forward, so I think that's probably, even if the escalation takes a turn downwards, I still think oil will kind of remain at 90 to 100 level. Okay. So I don't think we're going away from that. Obviously, if the escalation picks up, then you will see a spike. But I think it's probably more gas prices, which Europe will be worrying about because of the gas pipeline and the problems that might have if there's an escalation in Ukraine from where we are today. So I think that the short term is that oil is probably protected in terms of what's happening in Ukraine and again the volatility around where we're going to move. But secondly, I think because of the move towards green energy, it's supported there because of the lack of investment. Okay. The one thing I would say is that if the escalation does pick up, I would expect OPEC to kind of start pumping more out and move away from some of the quotas that they have in terms of supply to kind of help the world through a higher oil price.
All right, Andrew, thanks so much for joining us and for sharing with us a perspective on some of the key happenings in markets currently. Let's also bring you a comment from the Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, as oil takes center stage amid the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
See, on the crude prices, very difficult to say as to how it's going to go. Even today in the FSTC, when we were looking at the challenges which is posed for the financial stability, crude was one of the things. International worrisome situations where we actually voiced that we want a diplomatic solution for the situation that is developing in Ukraine. All these are headwinds. On the crude, obviously, is one of the very important consideration. We'll have to see how it goes. Today itself, the rate is somewhere in the range of 96 Brent. So we'll keep a watch.
With crude oil prices touching a 7-year high, petrol and diesel customers in India are going to get a big shock once the assembly election process is over next month. Consumers enjoying stable petrol and diesel prices for more than 3 months now, and oil experts believe that the Aam Aadmi can expect a rude jolt in early March. Oil marketing companies might drop a petrol bomb on consumers, increasing petrol and diesel prices by 5 to 8 rupees a litre in coming months. On November 3rd, the centre had gone for the deepest excise duty cut ever to cool retail prices from record highs. But now prices are highly volatile because of ongoing Russia-Ukraine tensions. If the tension escalates further, the price increase would be much more in coming months for both petrol, diesel as well as natural gas. Fuel pumps in Sri Lanka have run dry as the country has no money to pay for imports. The economic crisis in the tiny island nation has reached a stage that it reportedly does not even have foreign exchange to pay for 2 shipments of fuel which arrived at Colombo port on Monday.
This rope blocking the entrance to a petrol pump in a town near Colombo is literally tying down the country, forcing Sri Lanka to a grinding halt. Notices like this of fuel pumps without fuel have sprung up across Sri Lanka. And where fuel is available, there are long queues of desperate citizens looking for anything to keep their vehicles running.
Everything is over. No sign of fresh supplies. No diesel in 4 petrol pumps. How will we do our jobs?
Sri Lanka imports all its fuel. 2 shipments had arrived at a port on Sunday, but the nation does not have enough foreign exchange to pay for it. It's not the only forex reserve that's empty. Inflation is at 17%. People have money, but no food to buy because most food is also imported. Its mainstay, the tourism industry, has collapsed. An economic emergency has been in place since 30th August last year. Sri Lanka's economy contracted by 1.5% in July-October, and it has to repay $6.9 billion this year in debt and interest. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who took charge in November 2019, claims the country will not default on international debt, a major part of which is owed to China. India has meanwhile been doing its bit to bail out Sri Lanka. Last month, a soft loan of $900 million was announced. Earlier this month, India extended a $500 million credit line for fuel purchases. Indian Oil also sent 40,000 tons of fuel to help Lanka tide over its fuel crisis. Another credit line of $1 billion is likely to be extended by India for food purchases. Interestingly, the Sri Lankan economic crisis has turned into a battle for influence between India, China and even Pakistan, all looking for strategic interests in the crucially located Indian Ocean island. Bureau Report, Business Today TV.
The rush to come home to India from the hot zone that Ukraine is turning into faces another huge hurdle. Air ticket prices from Ukraine to India have shot up as much as 3 times in the past few days. Private airline seats selling for 30,000 rupees are now going for as much as 90,000 rupees. There are nearly 20,000 Indian students studying in Ukraine. The pressure on them has risen after the Indian embassy asked all Indian citizens to leave the country temporarily until the crisis abates. India Today Group's Gaurav Sawant spoke to some of the Indian students there.
Is there a lot of panic amongst Indian children here? Do they all want to head back? Are all flights that are going back packed? Have prices gone up?
Yeah, probably the prices are double the rate. If we book one way, it is double the rate. If we book return also, but it is okay. And then we are not afraid that much, but our parents are thinking like it is too like afraid in here. So we are back to India.
But would you rather stay here? What are your local friends telling you? What are Ukrainian friends telling you?
Like they are not afraid, they have to stay here, right? So the situation is normal actually inside here.
टिकट क्या नॉर्मल रेट पे खरीद रहे हो या ज्यादा महंगे खरीद रहे हो?
एक्सपेंसिव है सर.
डबल रेट हो गया टिकट.
डबल रेट. 25 की टिकट 54, 60 ऐसे मिल रही है.
90,000 तक का टिकट पहुंच गए. 95,000 का.
यस सर.
किसने खरीदा है 95,000?
हमारे साथ के हैं सर.
प्रज्ञा, why are you heading back?
Because of the situation, our parents are worried, so they're calling us back.
Are the tickets the same price or have you had to pay much more?
Like those who have booked the tickets before, they will have the tickets like at very low cost, and now the tickets are very high, so they are giving us the like chartered flights.
The rising global tensions between Russia and Ukraine have also percolated in the crypto market. Prices of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies fell during the day after Russian President Vladimir Putin made a defiant speech amid tensions on the Russia-Ukraine border. Bitcoin plunged by nearly 8% in the last 5 days. Ethereum saw cuts to the tune of 11%. Ripple was down nearly 9% in the last 5 days. And Tron saw a 3% downside in these last 5 days. With these, the global crypto market volume fell by nearly 7%, while trading volume rose by 45% over the past 24 hours. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said the government is looking into all lapses that happened at the National Stock Exchange. Talking to media on her second day in Mumbai, the Finance Minister said she was still looking at the details of the case and would revert once there was more clarity.
These are the very questions for which I'm going through the detail of what is before me. So although you would perceive, and I'm not disputing that, although you would perceive that these are well established and the forensic audit may also have said all this, I'm still going through it. So I don't want to give a preemptive reply. So I will definitely call for a meeting, press conference, where I will definitely give out all that questions you may have on that matter. But at this stage, it will be unfair. I am definitely going through it. These very questions are also in my mind. I will come back to you.
The current CBI investigation into the bizarre Himalayan yogi fraud case at the National Stock Exchange is actually an offshoot of another bigger fraud at the country's largest stock exchange. NSE has been accused of favouring a cabal of influential brokers and traders, giving them first access to crucial trades. This is commonly known as the Colocation scam, and Business Today TV explains what it's all about.
It was in August 2009 that the National Stock Exchange offered its member brokers a special facility of co-locating their own servers with those of the NSE. The NSE server was located in Mumbai with broker servers all over the country. In simpler words, the brokers could place their IT servers right next to the NSE servers for a fee. On the face of it, it was a benign offer. The National Stock Exchange would earn more revenue in fees and the brokers would have faster and more stable access to trade information. But for nearly 5 years, the system was gamed by a powerful few. What really happened was the close proximity to the NSE servers gave these privileged brokers an advantage of milliseconds in share trading. The information from the servers would reach them first, if only by a fraction of a second. The National Stock Exchange also gave its colocation members a tick-by-tick data on the price feeds. This was like ball-by-ball commentary in a cricket match, instead of being told the score at the end of each over. Interestingly, the tick-by-tick system delivered data in the sequence traders logged into the system. So the trader who logged in first would receive the prices first. Some traders also worked hand in glove with the National Stock Exchange officials to ensure their login happened as soon as the NSE switched on its servers. The NSE also had a backup line for use only in the case of emergencies. Some brokers were allowed to access this line in contravention of existing rules, which had much less traffic and was much faster than the main connection. The real game changer here was computerized or algorithmic trading, which allowed for instant trades without human intervention. The computers ensured trades were automatically executed at the right price, instantly, without any delay. While a millisecond may sound too short for any serious advantage, for brokers trading in crores of rupees every day, the ability to buy a few paise lower and sell a few paise higher makes all the difference, and it did. They made hay from 2010 to 2014. Just one broker, OPG Securities, was found guilty and banned for 5 years by the Securities and Exchange Board of India. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
The plot thickens in the long-drawn battle between Bharatpay MD and co-founder Ashnir Grover and the company's board. Grover has now filed an arbitration plea in the Singapore International Arbitration Centre, seeking indemnity from any future action against him in his ongoing settlement discussions. He also maintains that the company's investigation against him is illegal. The latest developments come in at a time when consulting firm Alvarez & Marshall have put forth preliminary results of the ongoing investigation, which was leaked earlier this month. Reports found evidence of fraudulent transactions in recruitment and payments to non-existent vendors. Media reports suggest that Ashnir claims this investigation is invalid because it was in violation of shareholder agreement and the Articles of Association. Demolition work on Supertech Twin Towers in Noida has commenced. Over 200 workers and engineers were on site to demolish the building in accordance with Supreme Court orders. The two towers, which were constructed in violation of building bylaws, will be brought down in the main blast, which will take place on May 22nd. Meanwhile, workers have been brought in to knock down the walls, blocks, steel and other material. Only the roof and pillars to be demolished in the blast. In a rare gesture, IDFC First Bank MD and CEO V. Vaidyanathan has gifted 9 lakh equity shares of the bank held by him to his staff for purchasing house. In yet another philanthropic gesture, the billionaire banker gifted shares worth about 4.83 crore rupees to his staff. While Vaidyanathan gifted 9 lakh shares, 2 lakh shares were disposed by Rukmani Social Welfare Trust for social activities. The shares were gifted away by Vaidyanathan to 5 people, including a driver, a trainer, a support staff and a couple of house help. And this is not the first time that Vaidyanathan has done this. In May 2021, he had gifted 1.5 lakh shares each to 3 persons to buy homes. And here's what else is making news in the corporate world. Jalan Kalrock Consortium, the successful resolution applicant and proposed promoters of Jet Airways, announced the appointment of Vipula Gunathileka as Chief Financial Officer. Former CEO of Sri Lankan Airlines, he will take on the role from March 1st. Food delivery platform Swiggy has started preparations to raise at least $800 million in an IPO early next year. The company plans to position itself as a logistics company and not just a food delivery firm. Supreme Court has agreed to hear in open court a review plea filed by Cyrus Investments. The plea is against the Apex Court's order to set aside NCLAT's directive reinstating Cyrus Mistry as the executive chairman of the Tata Group. The petition will be heard in open court on March 9th. Digital healthcare startup MediBuddy has raised $125 million in a Series C funding round led by Quadria Capital and Lightrock India. The startup said that they'll invest in customer awareness, hiring, strengthening technology platforms in the new round of funding. And that's where we leave it on the show today. Thanks so much for watching.